Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a gun on the table that's actually been pretty popular since it was released. It's the follow-up to the P365 made by Sauer. It's the P365 XL. It seems like they skipped the L, so they went right from regular to skipped large, went right to extra large. And I've got one here to show you guys. So the first thing we'll do is, we don't have anything in here that's going to get unpleasant. The P365 XL is designed to extend the capacity a little bit, extend the grip, and it's a slightly longer barrel length. So they're still targeting the concealed carry market, but moving more towards thin, slimline inside the waistband, and moving away from what could have really been a pocket gun. So if you take the original P365, which I've got here, this holds 10+1 in a very, very small footprint. I'm not going to do a full comparison today, but I'm just going to kind of give you an idea. There's the difference in barrel length, and then the grip length. If I set them up side by side, you can see that the original P365 is a lot smaller. It's almost like they just kind of extended it a little bit in the slide. The frames look similar in this regard, but the grips are about a finger shorter on the old 365. We'll do a full comparison later on that, but just to give you an idea of what this gun's kind of about. The sights that are on it, it comes with their X-ray night sights, which the front sight is got a ring around it, so it's got a green ring around it and then a tritium dot in the middle. So it's actually a really nice night sight. It's fairly easy to see. The back sight looks really good here with the studio lights on it, but at the range these dots just disappear. It is a night sight, but without any kind of ring or anything on it, it's really difficult to see this sight during the day. And what I found is I could see it and I could shoot, but I was slow. I'd bring it up, front sight I found instantaneously, and at that point, if I were, let's say, in a self-defense encounter, I could probably pull the trigger at that point and reasonably hit what I'm looking at. But trying to show the accuracy potential of this, trying to tear up a bullseye, was rather challenging with it. I would much prefer like the TFO style sights where they have fiber optic during the day, tritium at night, or at least the same ring around it that you have on the front sights. On the rear side of the XL, it's a plate, and this plate can be removed and replaced with a red dot. At the moment, as far as I know, the only one that'll fit is SIG's own red dot, the Romeo red dot. And there is a version you can get with that pre-installed. And that is something SIG has a tendency to do, is to set things up where their accessories, at least initially, are the only accessories available. And the front sight's dovetailed, so it's easily replaced if you want, though I kind of probably wouldn't mess with that front sight. It's actually pretty nice. As far as accessory rails go, I'm going to say no, this doesn't have a rail, even though it's got basically what looks quite like a rail, notch cut out. But that's SIG's own proprietary thing. Only something that is designed for SIG's proprietary thing will fit it. And like everything else, initially you have to get your stuff from SIG, aftermarket will catch up. But if it had even that single slot like Glock does of a Picatinny rail, it would open up your options greatly for lights and lasers and things like that. So the proprietary nature is a bit of a negative. Luckily for if you want this gun and you buy one, SIG is big enough that the aftermarket does chase them, but they're chasing them. Guns that have a Picatinny style rail or more standard format optic ready, you don't have to wait for the aftermarket to catch up because there's already stuff out there. The texturing on this is quite nice. It's kind of a sandpaperish look, but it really doesn't feel sandpapery. It grips well, it's easy to get a hold of, it stays in your hand, there is no replaceable backstrap, but it's not abrasive or uncomfortable. There's kind of a finger groove-ish setup. You've got one for this finger, and then just kind of a long stretch for the other two. It does kind of fit well in your hands. I actually found this one a little bit easier to shoot than the other one because the grip is just a hair bigger. When you put the 15 round mag that's available as opposed to the 12 round mags that come with it, so let me put that in there first. Fits nice and flush, really doesn't extend the grip at all. And if you put the 15 round in it, the texturing kind of follows. And if you've got large hands, you might actually find yourself down onto the magazine. This is possibly a pinch point, but it seems to be big enough and curved enough that I don't think you're going to get pinched, because even my hands, you see I land my hand right on that. I didn't get pinched. and neither did Hammer when he was shooting it. So I don't think you've got a pinch point there. And this 15-round magazine will also come with a different base plate that you can put on it to be able to use this with the regular one, the regular XL. So you've got some flexibility there when it comes to the magazines. You've got front and rear serrations. So if press checking is your thing, you've got the serrations to do it. I found it easy to get a hold of, easy to operate. When you go to pull the slide, it kind of hangs for a second and then breaks free. That's not unusual. A lot of guns do that. And I had no trouble with cycling it, reliability, or anything else. It's got this flatty style trigger, which has really become quite popular these days. And consistent with SIG, they don't use the split or hinge trigger, so they don't have trigger-based inertial safeties. They rely on the other internal safeties. That is something that got the P320 in a bit of trouble, but they worked through it by changing the weight of the trigger and the various springs and stuff like that. That's one thing I wish they'd kind of get over that, go with the split or hinged style trigger, whatever they want to pick for the inertial safety characteristics. The slide stop, slide release is easy to get to. It's right here on your thumb, but it's low profile and beveled, so it's not going to interfere with concealed carry or going in and out of a holster or anything along those lines. And the gun's got kind of a nice beaver tail. It's not so far sticking out that it gets in your way, but it does pretty much ensure you're not going to get slide bite. And unlike a lot of SIGs that tend to have a fairly high bore axis, this one doesn't place the slide as high up off your hands as some of the others do. So that beaver tail, if you've got meatier hands, might come in handy. Overall, I kind of enjoyed shooting it. It's a decently designed gun. It's well manufactured. I found the mag release a bit of a challenge to use, only because of the way it's angled and shaped. The triangle itself isn't so much of a problem, but it's kind of tilted away from you. So instead of coming this way or being flat, it's kind of tilted this way. So unless you've got really long thumbs, it's kind of hard to get around to get a hold of it to push on it. That's just something you can train through. And it does have a nice big trigger guard with a bit, kind of a beveled opening to clear the trigger as it comes down. And it would work well with all but the largest of gloves. So kind of danced around the trigger a little bit. Let's actually talk about the trigger. There's a moderate take-up. It's a reasonable take-up. It's nice and smooth. Fairly light break. It's a little creepy, but not excessive. It's not a sharp, crisp wall, but it's not spongy or vague. And it is quite consistent. The feel of the trigger, every time you pull it, will be basically the same. The reset is nice. It's not the shortest reset, but it's a good reset. I found it real easy to get back on target. The trigger had no issues whatsoever with getting back on target, being reliable, and being consistent. It's actually quite a nice trigger. And especially on a smaller concealed carry gun, a lot of them tend to compromise the trigger. This one, they've done a good job of keeping a really nice trigger. Overall, it's a nice gun. It's well designed. You can reverse the mag catch. And if you're looking for a high capacity, very small, very light gun, and speaking of that, let's talk about the dimensions real quick before I take it apart. It's 6.6 inches long. That would include that beaver tail. It's 4.8 inches tall, which stays the same with the flush mag, and of course it gets a little longer if you put the extended mag in it. And it's 1.1 inches thick, so it is staying relatively small, especially considering the amount of capacity you can get in it, and it weighs 20.7 ounces. Now, one thing that's going on right now, I mentioned the magazines. It comes with the 12-round magazine. It's supposed to come with 2. Right now, with everything going on, there's actually a version out there coming with 1 and a coupon. And you fill out the coupon, or you go to their site and register, however it works, and you'll get another magazine when it's ready. Right now, they're having a hard time keeping up, and they're limiting the number of magazines you get. That can be a little frustrating, but at least it does improve the availability of the guns themselves. This one, if you search properly, this one came with the 2, so you can find them with the 2. But I imagine for a short time, the 2 magazine versions will probably dry up for a bit, and you'll be stuck with the 1 plus coupon thingy. So let's go ahead and take this apart. To take it apart, you do lock it back, and then you flip this arm down. Now, this is one negative on the gun. This is a little twitchy. You have to have it perfect. If it's a little too far forward or too far back, if it's too far back, it'll snap back. If it's too far forward, you won't be able to get the slide off. It's kind of got to be just right. So what you find yourself doing is releasing the slide, which can actually be difficult to do if this is positioned poorly. because it does interfere with the slide release, and you have to kind of wiggle it around. It's a little twitchy. It's kind of frustrating. Once you get used to it, you can do it, but that would be an area in other guns that SIG has made, or other manufacturers that use this style don't seem to have that problem. So kind of in summary, if you just bought this gun and got it home and it won't come apart, don't get the hammer out. Just kind of play with this a little bit and push it all the way forward to drop the slide. And I'll show you when I go put it back together, there's another trick you may have to do with this. Once you get used to it and you know where to position it, it works. Looking at the frame, you'll see it's got actually a quite robust set of rails on each side. Pretty much full-length rails all the way, both sides. And here's the fire control group back here. Overall, it's well designed, which is typical of SIG, well machined, clean in here, nothing extra going on that doesn't need to be there. And then the slide is similar. Pull out the recoil spring. This recoil spring is slightly differently designed. It is captive. It's kind of a flat spring. It's a little different than the one in the regular P365. And here's the barrel. Now everything in the gun that is metal, except for the barrel, is stainless steel. The barrel is carbon steel, and it's all nitron coated. So let me go ahead and get my trusty little light. You can see it's a very well machined barrel. Everything is done smoothly, which again is typical of SIG. SIG does charge a premium for their guns. This one is going to be in the 600-ish territory. More probably right now with everything that's going on, but if you look, you can find it in the high sixes or the high fives. But they do a good job. You are getting quality for that money. And the same thing will hold true when you look at the machining of the slide. You'll see their drop safety mechanism is here. So it does have the drop safety mechanism. It just doesn't have the inertial safety that most other striker fire guns do. Again, they've relied on the spring weights and the weights of the trigger and the weights of the moving components to try to affect that. So if you're looking for quality, you're going to find it in this gun. Put this thing back together. This one's easy to reassemble. Everything wants to just drop into place as far as putting the slide back together. Now here's where it can get interesting. This will sometimes flip back depending on circumstances. Right now it's not, but if you happen to brush along the slide release, you can get this to flip up on you. If it does that, you may have difficulty putting the slide on. If it does, also, you may need to lift the slide release to get it to go back down. If it doesn't, then it will work fine. You just pull it back, and it normally will release itself. If it doesn't, just flip it and it'll release. And then you're back in business. So it's not necessarily difficult to disassemble and reassemble. It's just a little quirky. Get used to it. You'd realize that if you run into a snag, it's just a matter of wiggling this just right to get past it. So overall, if you're looking for a very small, very light, high-capacity concealed carry gun, the P365 series is good. They had some initial issues with the original P365 when it was first released, and they've worked through all that. We've got a video on where we revisited the P365, and they've taken care of all those different issues that were present. So I wouldn't count them in your decision-making process today. And of course, the XL is subsequent to the P365, so any learnings from that are going to be applied to this from day one. It's a good gun. It's well designed. You may choose to put the red dot on or to do something different with the sights. But beyond that, I wouldn't see any reason why this wouldn't do well as a self-defense gun. Primarily targeting concealed carry inside the waistband. Yeah, it could be a nightstand gun, but you probably would end up looking for something a little bigger than that for a nightstand. But then at the same time, with 15 rounds of capacity, it might give you everything that that bigger gun would do and be ready to go. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and click that bell to get notified when we put out a new video. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, kind of all over the place. And thank you.
Headshot again. Ooh, headshot again.